Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Authors Roundtable. Have a wonderful group of people on today's call. I'll go through and start doing introductions here in a second. One of the things we're going to talk about today is our favorite independent or small print authors. So please listen to the podcast. Enjoy. If you are a new author, we are going to be giving tips and tricks and things that may help you, like hiring a professional editor versus somebody off of the internet, maybe, something like that, something that I have some personal experience with recently. But first today, Casie Aufenthie. So Casie, please tell us about your book, or your works rather, and yourself.
Oh, yes. So I write science fiction romance. It's generally new adult, so they're over 18. My first book is The Drift, that came out a couple years ago. And then this year I released the sequel, The Symbiosis. And then just last month I did an audiobook for The Drift. So for anyone who's interested in audiobooks, I do have that one, first book.
Yeah, I'm an audiobook fan. And then next we have Mr. Christopher W. Brown.
Hi, it's Christopher Brown. I was in episode 3 with David and John, and I'm glad to be back. I am a first-time author, released in September. I wrote about myself over the last few years, the lockdown, some health issues that I was going through, and the start of my show, the Cross-Border Interviews with Chris Brown. My independently published book, Just Keep Talking, Lockdown Podcasting and Health, is on bookstores, but it is not via audio, so you do have to read it like the old days. So that is my brief introduction. I'm looking forward to today's conversation and getting to know some of these new authors that I'm going to find their books and buy them today.
Awesome. And then next we have A Boulet.
Boulet.
There we go. Sorry about that.
So I have 4 books, so I'm going to try to keep it a little short. This is my first one. It's available everywhere, and ebook and audiobook. And my second one is The Strong Within Us, and that's same thing, ebook, hardcover, everything, and audiobook. The last 2 I haven't done an audiobook yet. So that's book 3. And then this is my latest, The Origins. And I've been too busy actually writing books to continue with the audiobooks for now, but I'm currently writing book 5. This is a series and book 5 is a standalone. So I write historical fiction and historical romance.
Oh, interesting. And then we also have Bali or B Singh. Go ahead.
Yep, B Singh. Hi, my name is Baldev Singh, and I go by B Singh as an author. And I'm a brand new author. I just published my first book. It goes by the name of Seba, The Eternal Quest. It's a fantasy novel, and it talks about a journey into a magical forest and then all the way to the pole star. And along with that story, there is a hidden meaning to the storyline. It talks about the things in our life, the lessons we learn, the emotions, our decisions, and a lot more. So I will highly recommend to anybody who's looking for answers in their life and how to improve their life, to how to motivate themselves and find the purpose of their own life. So if anybody is going into that line, then yes, this is a book for you.
Excellent. And then we have David or D.H. Schleicher.
Thanks, David. So I have a couple of books. I have the first book that I released was a novel, Then Came Darkness, which I don't know if you can see very well here. Historical fiction / historical thriller. And then I have a short story collection, And Then We Vanish, which is literary fiction with a twist. Lots of surprise endings to the story, a little bit like O. Henry, maybe. And then I have a new book coming out in January when we come back, which is more stories. Some of them similar to what you would find it in Then We Vanish, but I'm also diving in for the first time into speculative fiction with that. So there's a couple of speculative fiction stories at the end of this new collection.
Well, that's interesting. And then finally, we have Mr. John St. Clair. John, are you back on?
Yeah, sorry.
Are you live now?
I am. My internet for tonight is being a little recalcitrant, so I apologize for that. Hopefully, we've got it all out of the way. So I am John St. Clair. I live in Reston, Virginia. I've been an author for a couple of years. I do have a book. I'd like to hold up the cover, bright red cover. It's called Stalin's Russian historical fiction, and I'm really proud of it. It's gotten some really good reviews, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I've done this call with David. I think this is my fourth one, or at least the third one, but I think it's number 4. And I've met a lot of really great authors, and I've read a lot of terrific books in the Twitter indie writing community, and I'm very honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So as we get started here, what I'd like to do first is just cover some of the independent authors that we like. Since I'm the host, I'll go first. How's that sound? Yeah, there we go. So the first author I'm going to talk about tonight, I've got another one if there's extra time, but it's Ellie Douglas. And Ellie's not with us today because she happens to be on the exact opposite side of the world as we are, and so the time zones are a little bit different there, and so we'll work out some time to hopefully get her on the podcast as well. But she wrote a book called Crawlies, and 8 legs, 2 fangs, and a vendetta. And it was a very interesting story, to say the least. It's one where, I don't know if everyone here has seen Arachnophobia or not, but I am a fan of that genre, if you will, those creepy crawly things. And I'm a fan in the fact that they scare the hell out of me. But it's a nice scare, right? And the way she handled the little creatures in this story was very interesting. So definitely check out Ellie Douglas. And make sure if you do read some of these independent authors that you do read, review, and repeat for the next one, because it's something that we want to make sure that everybody gets the good word, if you will. So definitely check out Ellie Douglas. So with that said, who would like to go next?
I can go.
There you go.
So I would like to recommend the author Ivy Ngeow. It's spelled Ngeow. She is one of the first, I would say, kindred spirit indie authors I found out there through the Twitter sphere. And she writes. Her novels are a little bit hard to categorize. I would say they're literary fiction, but they definitely have psychological thriller elements to them. She has an international background, and she writes what I would consider like globe-hopping thrillers, or thrillers set in exotic locations that also have a strong satirical literary bent. The first novel I read of hers was Overboard, which was just absolutely amazing. The main character was an amnesiac trying to recover their memories and recover from a horrible accident where they were severely burned. Just an amazing mystery thriller with lots of different characters and intertwining stories. And then I went back and read one of her earlier novels called Cry of the Flying Rhino, which took place in Malaysia and Borneo, and it was just fascinating. Just bits of the world I would have never experienced otherwise if I hadn't read her books. Highly recommend her. She also contributes a lot to short story collections and has been the editor on a few short story collections that focus on Asian literature written by writers from around the world where the stories take place in Asia. So really, really fascinating writer. She's very active on Twitter and with the writing community. So highly recommend Ivy Ngeow.
Interesting. I like that. I wonder if she's been to those different places, or if she's writing about them having never been there. I know on this podcast we do have an author, John, who your books, about historical Russian fiction, and you weren't born in the past, so
No, I wasn't.
and you've never been to Russia.
I have not.
So I'm just curious, how hard is that to do for other authors who, either write about something fantasy where you're making up the whole thing, or when it comes to a real place, are you doing, do you do a ton of research just to make sure, like for me and mine, I'm covering some places that I've been, but I'm still going on and mapping it out to make sure if I say something's a 10-minute drive, that it's a 10-minute drive, that it's not, a half hour, 3 hours or whatever, just to make sure it makes sense. And so for anybody writing, whether it's John and what you did, but or others, how much research do you do on the places you're writing about if they're real, and on the places that are made up? Do you draw out maps and stuff like that so that you can answer those questions to yourself quickly during the book? So I'll just throw that out there for anybody who wants to answer.
Well, I do a huge amount of research. I actually use YouTube a lot. So you can just Google on YouTube the city. Right now I'm writing about Budapest.
Okay.
And you can even go back in history and you can say Budapest 1950s, right? And most likely you will find a video of something somewhere.
Wow. It's a great resource. I mean, that's, I've used Google Street View and stuff like that and other ones too. So I walked outside the building and I see this, and it's like, oh, there you go. That's pretty cool. So I never thought of using YouTube to look at places back in time. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's like you think 20 years ago we wouldn't have been able to do that, right? And same with Google Maps, right? You can just go on there and actually look at the intersection on your computer.
Exactly. Pretty amazing. Anyone else use that? Or like I said, for the fantasy people, do you write out maps? I'm just kind of curious on that.
Yeah, I would like to answer about that. I read different geographical areas, like there is a chapter based on mountains. So I read about Himalayan mountains, how the Himalayan mountains are, how the peaks are. I watched some documentaries on Mount Everest, how to climb K2, and I used all that knowledge in writing my chapter.
Nice.
And in the next book, I'm writing about ocean, and the place from where I come, I've never been to ocean, so I don't know much about ocean. But that entire chapter is about mermaids and the sunken city, like Atlantis and all those things. So I read a lot how Atlantis is, like, basically in fiction, how it was, and about how the coral islands are, how volcanic islands are, how the sunken cities are. Like, I watched a lot of documentaries on YouTube, same source, YouTube. And but I watch documentaries a lot to get the real knowledge about. But I'm writing fiction, but I want to include the actual facts, and I get those facts from documentaries.
Oh no, that's exactly right. So let's go back to our original topic here. Who would like to go next on their indie author or small print author? I'm going to start calling people. All right.
Okay.
All right. So one of the authors that I've come to be a fan of is Raeta. She writes paranormal romance, and it's very character driven, and she's able to pull you into those emotions just so easily. And the prose rather is very poetic, and it just flows beautifully. There's this almost melody to how she writes, and it's just gorgeous. And she has 2 books out so far. One is Everlong, which is about a woman who doesn't remember how she died. Mm-hmm. And then the other is Ladybirds, which involves a touch-starved, sarcastic ghost haunting a college photographer.
It's too funny. I like it.
Yeah, so they're very, very easy to get into. I mean, you're turning pages, and before too long, you're done, and you're like, whoa, okay.
That's amazing. I like that. Now, the paranormal romance, that's something where, as I started to get into the horror genre that I'm in, I'm like, maybe I should experiment a little with romance. And I'm like going, no, I don't know that that's for me. But the market seems like, that it's out there for, lots of different types of authors. So that's, and I was at a book signing. Yes, I did leave my house, Chris, believe it or not. And I left my house, went to a book signing, and I met somebody who was a religious romance author. And I thought that was very, very interesting, talking about, romance as it goes from, being a very religious and spiritual person. And so that was kind of interesting to me, all the nuances for romance. So I thought that was just kind of cool. So who would like to go next on their favorite author?
Yep. This is the book which I'm reading right now. It's by Miklos Galata. Its name is Healing Places of Kingsville and Leamington.
Oh, nice.
It's a self-help book. Sorry?
That's nice. No, I said it's good.
Yeah. So it's a self-help book. And I generally go for like a walk in the forest areas, like trails and all those things. And I met him personally, and that's how I came to know about him. And he introduced me to different areas in Kingsville and Leamington, and he told me about all the places over there, and we became good friends. And then he told me that he is a writer as well. So I got his book and I read it, and I came to know that he was suffering from depression and anxiety, and he used nature as a tool to heal himself. And that's what this book is all about. So I read it recently because in my second book there is a chapter about depression and anxiety, same thing. So I am taking help from his book to get an idea about how I can explain those things in a better way. So it's a self-help book, and with the pictures in it, most of the book is just pictures, just like this. And he's a good at photography too. So I am too good at photography, so that's a win-win situation for both of us. And along with that, he has given deep explanation about all those trees and plants, animals, whatever is available in that area. And it's really helpful. If anybody is suffering from depression, anxiety, yes, they can just learn some good lessons from his books.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, it's amazing on that as well. One of the other people that I'll mention later is Bailey G, and she uses poetry to overcome some of the stuff, the bad stuff that happened to her in her life, and stuff she's recovering from as far as depression and things. And for me, it's I think it's the first poetry book that I ever read cover to cover. Probably the first poetry I'd read in 35 years, to be honest. But it's something that, one of the things that I find interesting is everybody on here so far has mentioned where they've found people from, right? So like John and I can't remember if I met you first on Facebook or first on Twitter, but most of the authors that I've met, have all came from either Facebook or Twitter. Chris, I think I actually approached you to be on your show, I do believe. And so that was just a random email that thankfully you responded positively to, and just didn't tell me to go away, get away. You got too many things to do. But that's interesting. So for the others, we'll come back to your authors and things like that. But how did you find the people that you found, and where do you seem to connect the best with other writers? What platform?
Truthfully, most of my connections are, through you, David. I see who you follow, and then I follow them. And it was actually John who said last sitting that we did here, use hashtags on Twitter, and then you can find this very large group of people on Twitter and social media with I am reading or am reading or am writing. And I took a little tip that he said last week was, hey, there's people who say I have $50 to spend, I'm writing something, and or I'm reading, and you tweet that out and people will recommend books. And that's where I picked up about 5 or 6 new books. I was like, okay, well, people are saying buy my books, I'll buy your books. So nice. I'm not one to not support local independent authors. So that's where most of my people I'm finding right now and connecting with.
Awesome. I'm happy to be the matchmaker there. So. So what about you, John? Where do you tend to gravitate more towards? The Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram?
Definitely for sure, Twitter, I'd say, gets the majority of my time. It's kind of hard. I mean, there's a lot of social platforms out there, and there's a lot of, it seems, flux at the moment with social media. A lot of things are coming and going, and a lot of things are coming on the scene. And of course, there's a lot of choices, but there's only one of each of us. And so, yeah, a lot of people are going to Hive or Mastodon or some other new thing that I haven't heard of this week. But again, there's only one of us each. And if you have to divide your time amongst
Yep, we lost you there, John, for a second. Yeah, you're exactly right. If you have to divide your time amongst all of those different platforms with being a single person, which most of us are, I don't know that any of us are paying social media people to do our marketing for us. I've tried to talk my daughter into it, tried to talk my wife into it. You know, I even tried to talk Chris into doing it just for fun. You know, I'm like, hey, you don't have enough to do, just promote me. But yeah, it doesn't work. What about others? I mean, you know, we've mentioned Twitter a lot. That's where I tend to gravitate to read from people, right? If I go to TikToks and things like that, I'm just watching videos, and next thing I know, I'm like, gee, there went my marketing time watching 50 videos of ducks crossing the road. You know, who knows? But is there any other platform that writers are hanging out on that we should consider? I looked at Mastodon, and I just don't think it's there yet, but that's me.
I actually use Instagram quite a bit now. It's actually growing quite a bit. And at first I was like John, I was like, I've got enough, right? I've got Twitter, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Reddit, and and I'm like, I really don't want to add another one. But when I went to the New York City conference for writers, they were like, Instagram is somewhere you need to be.
Yeah.
So I put it on there, and I try to post. I try to post just a couple of times a week, but I do try to post daily on my stories, and same with Twitter. I post daily. But I found that I actually am starting to meet quite a bit of indie authors on Instagram now. I met Bali on Instagram, and then the author that I recommend is actually a children's book author.
Oh, nice.
And his name's
let's go into that and tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, his name's William O'Sullivan, and he's in the UK. And I believe it's called Billy the Fox, and then he has another one as well. But it's just beautiful illustrations and really good story about how to deal with bullying and real issues, but in foxes, right? And in talking animals, right? So it's really cute. And and I've read Bali's book as well, so I recommend that completely to fantasy readers. I mostly read what I write, so I do read a lot of historical fiction, but I haven't found any indie authors that I've read too much about, because that it seems to always be like some kind of paranormal history or whatever. I'm a history nerd.
Well, I will introduce you to somebody on this call here in a little bit.
Yeah. So I would like, if anybody knows of any indie authors that is just like strictly history or historical romance, but without the horror or the mixed up genres, right?
Yeah, so John's book is called Stalin's Door, and it's a Russian historical fiction novel.
When he was talking about it,
go ahead and tell a little bit about it. That'd be interesting. Get you at least another purchase here while we're on the call.
Yeah. I love Russian. history. I read a book by oh, I can't remember her name now. Redmond, I think it was. It was about the Russian Revolution
Nice.
in the early 1900s. And it was a really good book, too.
Yeah, my daughter, she likes reading, real life stuff. So at least that's why she told me she hasn't read my books. Anyway, I'm not sure which. It's either that or she doesn't like the way I write. But either way, it's I only want real things, real drama, real life. I'm like, I can't do real life because then I go to jail. It's horror. So, but it just is what it is. So let's see here. So, Mr. Christopher Brown, who's your favorite indie author out there?
Other than you, because you're amazing and you're brilliant, and John is too. Like, honestly, they're the greatest books I've ever read. But in all seriousness, they're actually really good. I highly recommend anyone who's sitting around this table. It's actually from back in my hometown of Newcastle. A fellow gentleman, a friend of mine, he wrote a book, and this really gets to the crux of what an independent author is. Because is it self-published? Is it an independent publishing company that you consider independent author? So that's where my confusion about this was laid a little bit. So for me, the author is Lieutenant Colonel John Conrad. He was a peacekeeping officer in Afghanistan.
Wow.
He was a Canadian, so he went over on the first wave of the Canadian military. He's out here in Alberta now, and I would highly recommend. He has 3 books. They're all about his viewpoint of the war in Afghanistan, but also what his family and his sort of life went through during those times that he was serving while his family was back in Ontario, now in Alberta. The one that I would highly recommend, I have a copy here because I always bring everything. I always bring it, is Sacred Heart Amid the Guns. Sorry. It's about his time in Afghanistan, being the first one on the ground. He was the logistics support for the UN peacekeeping mission over in Afghanistan. I would highly, highly recommend it. And there's another one that just came out, and I just turned the page just so I completely don't have the name here, but I will get it to you later on. So I found him because him and his wife and I used to go out for coffee all the time, and I started reading his books, and I just fell in love with the way he wrote and the way he told first-person narratives.
Yeah, first person is something that I just got into in my zombie story, right? I wrote a love story to the zombie community, basically, paying back all of them for all the wonderful stuff they gave me. And I really like the first person perspective. My original stuff was all written in third person and all the good fun stuff. But I really like the first person, so I may stick with that for any future work. What is everybody else on the line like now? John, Chris, I know yours is about yourself, so that by default was first person, but for everyone else writing fiction who's not telling their own story, which is kind of self-serving, Chris. I hate to say that, but writing your own story about yourself,
wow,
and then making your parents buy the book. It's like, you want to be my friend, Dave? Buy my book. Just kidding. No, it's on my list of things to read. So I'm going to read that first before John's, because John's is a little bit more words. And for me, I'm an audiobook guy. I'm sorry. I know it's an author podcast, but I love audiobooks. And I want to talk to you, J.A., later about the fact that I think you do your own audiobooks. But before we go there, what does everyone write as far as, or what's your preferred mode? First person, third person, God mode? What do you like?
Third person.
Yeah, I definitely prefer to write and read in third person, but I will read in first person if the story intrigues me enough. But my preference is third for both.
And what's the reason for that? So you didn't know I had a follow-up question. What's the reason you like third person to write in?
I've always written in third person. It's just more comfortable for me. I'm able to get in the characters' heads a little bit better, because when I read I'm like, no, I didn't do that.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And for you, Jay, is it sort of the same, or is there another reason you write in third person?
Actually, when I was in my teens, I read a lot of historical fiction, and I read a lot of spy novels, and a lot of the novels were, back then it was third person omniscient, right? I'm
Yes.
probably not saying that right. and I just got used to it, right? And like she said as well, like I like to get into the characters' minds even a little bit, right? I want to know what even their nuances are, right? Like if they, and I do that a lot in my books as well. If they, if they end up pushing their glasses up on their nose all the time, if they pull on their beard,
No,
if they,
like that.
so to me that kind of characterization really gets me right into the world, and I'm living it with them, right?
That's interesting. And I never thought of it for what Casie said about, I didn't do that, right? So who knows, maybe I need to rethink my moving into the first person genre solely, but it's such an easy, genre to write in if you're writing about, somebody similar to yourself, or at least, you're trying to get into that headspace, if you will. So that's good. Now, see, I think, John, you still need to give us an author, correct?
Yes, and I apologize. I have no idea. I've done these calls before, and I play D&D every week, and for some reason my connection is just the worst. So if I start talking, David, and you can't hear me, or we want to move on, just raise your hand and I'll be quiet. So I thought about this question, and I actually have I believe, a unique answer. I've got 4 recommendations, but they're grouped into 2 categories. One category were authors that were just like all of us. They're indie authors. They weren't really well known, and they hit the lottery, or they just wrote the best thing ever, and now they're household names. These were authors just a few years ago that nobody heard of. Now everybody's heard of them. There's movies that you've seen. They started on the indie writing community, and now they're big time. I also have 2 other authors that are still in the indie writing community, and I don't mean to say that that's one is good and one is bad, but I only illustrate that in that there are authors that are either doing it part-time or full-time, or maybe branching into writing, and they quite literally blew up. They got they like I said, they hit the lottery, or they hit the right agent, or they talked to the right person, and it's a 1 in a million shot, but they're household names. And I'll just mention them real quick. They're on Twitter. They do interact with people. I've interacted with them. Now, of course, their time is very limited, because there's millions of people that are trying to get a hold of them, and they only have so many hours in the day, just like us. But you've probably seen the movie The Martian. Maybe you've read the book. It's excellent. The guy's named Andy Weir. He was an indie author a few years ago. He's got a few books now, but he really hit it big with The Martian. The other gentleman is Hugh Howey, another guy who was totally indie, self-published, did the whole thing, whole 9 yards. He hit the big time with the Wool series, WOOL. That has actually been picked up by Apple TV. It'll be on Apple TV next year with big name A-list stars. I mean, he's really big time now, but he still hangs out in the Twitter writing community, and he's very approachable. So Andy Weir and Hugh Howey used to be just regular names. Now I'd say that they're very, very famous when compared to all of those metrics. I'll mention 2 other folks that I really, really like. One is S.Z. Attwell. She writes climate science fiction, or cli-fi, as opposed to sci-fi. This is sort of a sub-genre of science fiction that focuses on the climate, earth changes, and that sort of thing. She's got 2 books out in what she calls the Estes series, AESTUS, and she's got 2 books on that, and they're both excellent. Another author that I follow and admire in the writing community is B. Fox. They wrote Piper Castles. That's a literary fiction book. And I have to say, for all the books that I've read in the community, I would not be surprised if this is one of those Hugh Howey or Andy Weir situations where it gets picked up and gets turned into a movie or a TV show or something like that. They write very eloquently, and I think they have a unique style, and they're working on another book that I can't wait to read. And B. Fox is a name I think of all the people that I know is going to go places. So Andy Weir and Hugh Howey used to be small time. Now they're big time. these other two individuals and everyone on this call, I think, can use them as an inspiration, as something to shoot for. Sometimes it just takes being in the right place at the right time, and maybe they knew someone, maybe they have an uncle or something that knew somebody in Hollywood. I don't know what it is, but they definitely started small like us, and they have graduated to the major league. So if that is something that can be used to inspire, I think it should. Plus, they write really well, and their books are really excellent. So S.E. Attwell, B. Fox on the indie side today, and Andy Weir and Hugh Howey used to be indie, but now they're sort of the Stephen King level. So
nice. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's something that, that there are still, independent authors who are getting discovered, right? And I'm watching some movies and things like that, and I'll see it's based on a book, so then I go, of course, and immediately delve into that author to see what else they've written, see if they're a new author and things like that, and I just love when that happens. So that's another reason I started these podcasts, is just simply to try to get the word out there to help other independent authors, right? To help people like us get started, keep going forward. I think, Chris, we convinced you on the last podcast to start writing your next book. Is that correct? We were trying to push you in that direction.
You certainly did, and it actually did happen after that last conversation. I'm not sure if it was KA or I forget the other author's name that was with us as well. I apologize if she's listening right now, but she said just basically start writing every day, and that's what I did. And well, it's rough, but it's started.
That's actually a good topic for the other independent and new authors out there. Does everyone here write every day? And I'll answer that question first. For me, is no, because I'm stuck, and I'm stuck because I know that the next scenes I have to write are going to be extremely horrible for me to write, and they're going to be extremely emotional for people to read. And I just don't know that I'm ready for people to think of me as the person who wrote those words. It is a serial killer story, and the serial killer at first is justified, and you're glad that they've done what they've done, and it's a great thing. But they start enjoying it. And so when somebody gets their order wrong at a fast food restaurant, they shouldn't have to die for that. I know that, emotions do fly, but it's just one of those things. And so I'm getting to some of those scenes, and I'm just like, I just don't know that I'm emotionally ready for it. I'm going to wait till, worst case, I may wait till after the holidays and do that. I'm not the type that I can start multiple books, but I may wait till after the holidays and get into that. But we will see. So typically when I am writing, though, I do write every day. How about everybody on the line? Do you write every day, or do you try?
No, I don't write every day. I first of all make the entire plot, give it a pause, give it like maybe a week or two, and then rethink over it, whether it is right or not, and then write chapter by chapter. So once the chapter is over, then I give it a pause again, then give it my mind some time to think about new ideas. If I have to make some corrections, I go back to the chapter 1, make some changes, and then proceed to the next chapter.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, I just give it some gap. And regarding your question, I think regarding your answer, like whatever we were discussing earlier, that's the first author and the third author. So maybe you are stuck because you're writing in the first author tone. So I had the same issue when I was writing about my book. I was thinking, should I write it as a first person's point of view or the third person's point of view? And then figure out that if I write first, then I will be in the shoes of the main character, right? Exactly. And whatever that guy is gonna do, so basically I will think that if I'm gonna do it or not, right? And we are constrained sometimes. Sometimes I think that, okay, I won't do it. So it means the character is not gonna do it. So that's why I thought that I'm gonna write it as a third person. So I will give the complete freedom and liberty to the character.
No, you're right. And it may be where I turn that. Yeah. You're right. So.
And whenever we are writing as a first person, again, the second thing is all the emotions, whatever character is feeling, we go through them. Exactly. And when we go through them, we feel a lot as a writer.
Oh, yeah.
So to avoid all that emotional burden, I chose to write it as a third person.
Yeah, but it also adds to it, I think, in some instances. But again, it's that's me. I don't know. I enjoyed that zombie one so much that I may go back to it. How about you, David? Do you write every day? And I think you're on mute. There you go.
Do corporate emails count at work?
Yes, yeah, okay.
Because I write a lot of those.
Have a full-time other job.
Yeah. Honestly, no, and I'm a notorious procrastinator, and especially with writing. I would say I'm always writing in my head. I'm always having an internal monologue and thinking about how I want to take whatever I'm working on. I usually have multiple works in progress, but sometimes I have so many works in progress, I never get the time to sit down and keep writing in a consistent basis. So yeah, I definitely don't. The people who say they write every day, I'm very impressed and sometimes skeptical, because it's really hard to do, and I've never been able to do it.
Well, John posts these pictures. It's like, write a six-word story on this picture, and I'm like, oh man, that's tough. I like
that counts though.
That microfiction stuff.
It's more than 0. So
yeah, it's amazing. So with that said, we're going to take a quick break here. So I'm going to hit pause on the recording here. All right, welcome back. And so continuing on with the last question, which was, do you write every day? Jay, what do you do every day?
I actually don't write every day, but I write on a strict schedule. So if it's Mondays and Thursdays and Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., that's when I write. So I wake up like any other work day, and I go to work, and I will take a lunch break as well. And maybe it's because I have children, right? And they need to know that, when mom's working, leave her alone. But it works really well for me. The only time I actually do write every day, though, is when I'm editing, because when I'm editing, I find that I hate it so much.
Yep.
That I just need to get it done. So I will actually cram it. I'll cram the whole entire book into a week or two, and I'll work at it 8 hours a day, and then it's done. Then I don't have to do this terrible task anymore.
I like that. That's too funny. Now, Casie, what do you do? Do you write every day or not? I don't believe we've ever asked you this question.
No, you haven't. I don't write every day. I would say I write most days, but I also don't write for long stretches because I have a full-time job and a child, and therefore my time is very seldom my own. But I do try to get in something every day, whether it's even just 500 words. I mean, just something just to feel like I'm still moving forward. I feel like that's an important feeling as an author, is that you're not stuck, because it's a terrible feeling. Been there. It's not fun. So even if I can just get a couple paragraphs, it's like, it's okay. I moved forward. We're good.
I like that. And then what about you, Chris? How did you do this? Right? Because I know that that you started with a personal story from your journal. So was it just simply taking what you journaled and just writing it down every day, or was it interpreting your journal to where the rest of the humans could read it? What was your process?
No, this is a way throwback. I was going through my old college laptop, because back in college I thought I was going to be the next like J.D. Salinger, because I was going to write the next great Canadian book and everyone was going to love it and it was going to be awesome and everyone's going to read it. And I read the first 6 chapters, which, dear God, if I can't believe I wrote that bad back that long ago. And I read it and I was like, I had something here. I'm just going to flesh it out a little bit. So it's completely not in the realm of a biography. It's on a completely different spectrum. So I'm working at it. And when I said I write every day, I should preface that by saying I write when I have the ability to write every day, right? Like, it's not I sit down Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday and I write every single day. It's when there's a day that I can write, I sit down and I write. When I'm people are out going to the bar, I'm sitting in my basement, like listening to like Sarah McLachlan blast over and over again, trying to get some like relevance in my head to say, okay, where's this beautiful music going to take me today? And then I can just start writing. And that's how I started writing again.
Nice. I like that. And it's funny bringing up the fact of, picking up something that you'd wrote, a long time ago, and then being, oh my God, this stinks. So for me, one of the things that I want to make sure to give to the writing community, right, is hire a good editor. If there's any doubt in your editor at all, you need to hire a good one. Find a friend that's a good editor, something like that. But also start incorporating, which was where my mistake came in, which was a proofreader, right? I'd never even heard of the term proofreader. We on the last call, we talked about beta testers and beta readers and things like that. And the fact that sometimes you get a lot of feedback, sometimes you get just a little bit. But having somebody, go through that entire book, before you hit that publish is a difficult task for me, because as soon as I'm done writing it, I just want to hit publish and say, it doesn't matter if there's a spelling mistake. If you spell, in the zombie book, I'll mention that again. I spell Corvid, because the person's saying it, and they're like me, and I've always pronounced it Corvid. I don't know why, I just do. I'm sorry, I do that way. So, but I never explained that that's how the person did it. So they're like, he even spelled COVID wrong, and I'm going, okay, it was in dialogue. In dialogue, spelling doesn't count. Okay, but I think if I would have had a proofreader or something like that, I think that they would have picked that up and said, hey, you might want to at least mention that this is the person's dialect that's coming through, not the fact that you don't know how to spell something, right? But it was just, it was some tough love that I got through reviews, which I actually like. I responded to every one of the reviews that were on Instagram and different things, and said, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. I'm going to go out and find a new editor. And one of the things that's interesting about it, the editor I found is based out of Thailand, and he has a publishing company in Asia. And he's like, yeah, we might want to publish this for you over here. And I'm like, okay, that would be even better. So we will see how that all works out. Evidently, apocalyptic fiction is big over there. Who knows? So editors, proofreaders, beta readers, any other types of readers we should have reading our work for those of us that have done several of these before. What do y'all do? So JA, what do you—
As I said last time, don't get your husband to do it, because he'll just read it and then he'll say he read it and not read it. So it's someone you can actually trust to read your books. So not someone who's going to puff it up your bum and say, oh yeah, it was awesome. Well, thanks.
Funny story on that. I actually I shared my first book with my daughter first, and told her that I haven't shared it with my wife yet, because it was something that mommy's very critical of my writing. So I didn't want to have that interfere with me in finishing that first book. So that was one where she was one of the people that had to wait till it was published to read. But that's just me anyway. But
I have a quick question, and I apologize to interject here, because I know last time you said ask questions if you want, but this is to the new authors that I have not met yet. We talked about your favorite independent authors. Have you used some of their techniques or how their writing style is in your books, or have you tried to stay clear of how they write compared to how you write? Because I always find it fascinating. When I wrote my book, I used the reference, I referenced back to what my favorite author did and how he wrote in first person. I'm wondering if I'm out to left field here, or do other authors not borrow but pleasantly steal from other authors about how they write?
So I would say, like, the author that I mentioned in particular, I was drawn to her style of writing because it was similar to mine. So maybe I don't know. So like, she uses multiple points of view and intertwining stories. I do that. That's how I like to write. That's how I enjoy books like that. And in terms of big name authors, those are the types of authors I'm drawn to as well. Like like somebody like Michael Ondaatje, who I would never ever dream of being able to write as well as he writes, but he's stream of conscious poetic thought in and out of people's heads, multiple points of view, multiple timelines. It's just absolutely amazing. So yeah, I would say more so from the big time authors that I really enjoy. I probably try to steal or
Borrow.
Leverage.
Yeah, borrow. Yeah, leverage. But I'm drawn to writers that write the same type of stuff I like to write. So
Mhm.
I think that makes sense because as an author, you're going to write the story that you love and you're going to write it the way you love it being done. And so you're, of course, going to be drawn to books that are similar to that because that's what you love. And if they have a certain stylistic approach to it, then you might go, oh, yeah, that's neat. I might try that next time. Or, if they describe something a certain way, you might think about how you can do something similar, but not the same, to try to evoke the same emotions or the same feelings. So I definitely think that's valid.
Nice. Anyone else on that question?
My mentor is Ken Follett, because I've been
wow.
reading his books since I was in my early 20s, and yeah, so I have borrowed some ways that he uses plot in historical fiction and how he switches scenes. And so that's why I like historical fiction, because I'll have like a scene where it's romance and they've met and they just kissed. And then, now we're going to, the next scene is now we're going to talk about the war that's starting, right? And so as a reader, you're reading that and you're going, oh my God, really? I got to read through this whole entire chapter to get to the kiss.
Awesome.
So I do that a lot, and it really makes my books page turners.
Nice.
Right? So you sit down with it and you can't put it down.
That's huge. I mean, that's
yeah.
huge. One of the authors that I really like is Donald Hamilton. He wrote the character Matt Helm. I don't know if anyone's ever read that or not. It's basically war story spy novel type stuff, right? Similar to James Bond and all that good stuff. But while he writes in first person, his sentences are just a thing of beauty. And I'm like, I just wish I could, get, one paragraph as good as his, and I would be a happy author. One of the things I read recently was that in some of the newer books, people are making their sentences shorter rather than having complex sentences based on the attention span of readers. Is that something that anybody on here is doing or heard of? It was, it made sense for today's readers, maybe don't have more than a 10-minute attention span, but I'm just curious if anybody here has adjusted, how complex their sentences are based on today's generation or not.
Some of my sentences are very complex. I had to break it down because my editor kept on forcing me to break them down. and she's sitting right here. Jay Bole, she's my editor. She helped me in doing this marvelous job. She did a wonderful job. Else this book was no way going to be published.
No, I just did the story editing though.
But some of the explanations about the lessons, they were complex, and I had to split them down. I did the same thing. And now they really look good. Earlier, even when I was reading it, I had to read it 2 times or 3 times to understand what this sentence wanna say. But now it's pretty easy. Everybody can understand them.
Yeah, and see, for me, I have dyslexia, right? So there's times where I will sort of forget to write a paragraph thinking I've already written that paragraph because I've written it in my head 50 other times, right? And so my editor gets it back and is going, well, they were getting to the place and then you're somewhere else. What happened in between here? We need some more words.
So, and that's what story editing is, right? So there's story editing, there's copy editing, and there's proofreading, right? So story editing is exactly what you said. You read it, and I've even read my own books, and I'm like, wait, that was a car, not a truck.
I did that one. I brought that up on one of the podcasts here. Is that they hopped in their Mustang and then they hopped in their Mustang GT and they got out of the truck at the other end. It's like, wait a second here. What is that?
Yeah.
And John, with your book, I imagine you had to go through a lot with that because you've got how many pages is yours?
I don't know. It's over 400, but I must say for the editing, for what JA said, if she could do it in a week, I'm very jealous. For me, it took me over a year because I'm like all of you, a one-person shop, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I didn't want to have any errors in any way, shape, or form. Historical errors, spelling errors, typos. I didn't want to have any continuity errors like what you were talking about, David.
Mm-hmm.
You get in a truck and you get out of a car. I didn't want to have any time inaccuracies or anachronisms. I didn't want to say, hey, dude, in the 1930s when that wasn't an expression necessarily, stuff like that. And then again, if you add in the culture that I didn't grow up in, a language I don't speak, in a time I didn't live in, I took a year. Now, maybe that's on the long tail end of what is normal. I don't know. I will say, and I've said this many times on many of these types of calls, I almost quit the entire thing multiple times because it seems like I would fix 2 or 3 things and 30 other problems would crop up like gremlins at night. You close your laptop, you open it the next day, there's crap you don't even know. I'm like, did the cat walk across the keyboard? Because I don't remember doing all this. And it nearly really almost broke me. But to answer your question, David, and especially for historical fiction, someone is going to take you to task. They're going to have their PhD in Russian literature, and they're going to hold you accountable for everything that you write. And so you have to be correct, or at least you have to be as correct as you can be. You can't wing it. Everything that happened is documented, and if you aren't exactly as authentic as you can be, someone is going to say something. So
what I do with that actually is I will I do 4 full edits. So the 1 week thing, that's only copy editing. That's I was talking about only commas and stuff.
No worries. I mean, I did that year was everything. All of the categories you mentioned, copy editing, proofreading, beta testing, beta reading, all that. That was the entire year process, and it's long and involved, and it's worth it in the end because
it is.
I have to say, it's a joy to finally hit publish.
What I do with the historical part though, I actually send my book to a museum. So I'll contact a museum that is very specific to what I'm writing about. And I will donate to the museum, and they'll find me somebody to read. I usually just give them sections of the book that are pertinent to what I need, right? And
that's a good idea.
And then they come back with a whole bunch of errors. And like you said, I'm just like, this is like the 4th time I'm doing this.
It's really bad. But for everybody listening, everybody on this call, please do not feel that if your book has an error, that's a bad thing in today's marketplace, especially if you're self-published on something like Amazon, which I think we all are. It's very easy to correct. It's no harm, no foul. You make the correction. It'll take 48 hours. It'll get pushed out into the world, and the next reader won't see that error. No problem. And if you think you're too, if you think the big guys don't make errors, you can go look it up. If you got Jurassic Park in your house, the novel by Michael Crichton, go look at page 54 or whatever. There's a huge error right there. It's been printed that way for years. I don't know why they don't fix it, but even the big guys like Michael Crichton can make errors in books that have been made into major motion pictures. Don't feel bad if you have an error. It happens to everyone.
That's, I mean, for me, what was funny is when I had mine converted to an audiobook, the first one, that's where I caught the car truck thing. All the other reads, I never caught it. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, wait a second here. And so I corrected it, and I sent it back to the editor saying, that was my mistake. Do you mind, or the publisher, do you mind switching this audio? And he was nice enough to do it, but that was just too funny. I was like, oh my goodness. And, but it's too funny. So when it comes to this then, so we might have been discouraging people for a little bit by talking about editing, right? Because they're like, well, hey, I'm writing this. I'm the writer. I don't need to do anything else. Well, yeah, it'd be nice if you had money and could pay other people to do it and all that. It's vanity presses. They're out there. But the reality is when you're doing this yourself, you may be like myself. I was relying on my cousin the first time, and she still edits my first series. It was only when I strayed away from her to do something different that I didn't feel like, yeah, let me just bug my cousin for something else. And so I'm very happy with what she was able to do. But now that I've learned the process, it's, I'm going to introduce those proofreaders into there and the story readers and story editing and stuff like that. So those are things I'm going to introduce, and they are going to have a cost, right? And I think, what did you say the cost was that for Jay? Like just for a general book, right? You're probably like $1,000 in total if you can find the editor at the right price and things like that, or was it more than that?
Well, my first book, it was 5,000 in total,
Yeah.
but that's with advertising too.
Sure.
And then I started whittling it down, and I started buying my own software. I started doing a lot of the editing myself before it gets sent out, because if you do that, you pay a lot less.
Yeah.
Right? And then as for the proofreading, I find that, I pay people to do the proofreading and the historical fact checks and stuff, but I will actually do one proofread before I hit publish myself. I'll
Yep.
actually sit down and read my own book. Guess what? I still find errors, so it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's so somebody told me one day, said before you publish, you should read your own book enough times so that you're sick of it, and then by then it's
Exactly.
ready to be published. If you're not,
I was pretty sick
yet,
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not sick of it yet, you haven't did it. That's good.
So I'm just going to jump in here because the trick that I used for my very last time that I edited, and goes back to when I was in university and they taught me this, is once you're done writing, read it backwards. Because once you start reading things backwards, then you're not reading the story, you're reading the words. And when you're reading the words, you're actually going to catch more than you're actually going to catch it reading forward, because your mind pretends that you're actually reading the words that you're really supposed to be reading. Where if you're reading it backwards, you have to concentrate on the actual words, and you're actually looking at the grammar, the actual wording, and the actual spelling of the issue. So that's how I last edited it. And going back to what John said, I think I'm on edition 4 of my book, and I was just published in September. So yes, everyone does make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I use Amazon for that reason. It's easy. It's the KDP software is not bad. The Kindle Create for or the cover editor and stuff like that, that's not bad. We're limited into the Amazon ecosphere, if you will. That's the only bad part. So some of the other people that are out there that publish on Smashwords and some of the other stuff, those eventually you can get into big bookstores and stuff like that. But you have to sell so many books before you get there. So to me, it's just easier on Amazon. Is anybody here on any other publishing place other than Amazon, or is everybody just on Amazon or Audible for the audiobooks?
I'm everywhere. I went on Smashwords, Kobo Books, Ingram Sparks, so I have hardcovers in all the bookstores as well. So Barnes and Noble, it's absolutely everywhere. I've lost count where they are.
Nice.
And same with the but I use distributors, right? So for the audiobooks, I'm in Audible, but I use Authors Republic. They are awesome.
Really?
I highly recommend them. They will put your audiobook out into 40 some odd different places,
Wow.
including Spotify and YouTube Music, a whole bunch of places. And then you just get royalties. And you have no idea from really where.
Well, yeah, I've never heard of them, so I'll check them out. And then, what was it like getting in the? I don't know that anybody else is. Anybody else in here in regular bookstores? Casie, you're there. How hard was that to get into those? Because is that something you have to get a publisher or publishing house, or is it something that how did you do it? What's the secret sauce?
Being really brave and talking to the people that work at the store.
Nice.
No, nice.
So essentially, I'm in Barnes and Noble right now. We have a community outreach person at our local Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And so they actually do local author signings quite frequently. They're very big on indie published books that are from our state. So it wasn't really that hard. It seems really intimidating because like, oh, Barnes and Noble. No, I literally walked in there. They gave me someone's email. I contacted him. He's like, oh, that's great. Yeah, we'll help you out. I'll meet with you on this day. We'll talk about it. We'll set prices and figure out what we can do for you.
Wow, that's amazing.
I was in there a couple of weeks later. I also have a couple of local bookstores in town. They took the book on consignment. They actually are sold out right now, but I could go back anytime I wanted to get back in there.
Nice. Now for the Barnes and Noble, if it was on Amazon, was that the issue, or were you able to, like, do you have to get it published somewhere else? Like some of
No. So the key with them is it does have to be open to, I think it's the distribution when you pick. So you can't just have the one option when you're uploading your book. You have to put it, I don't know if they call it wide or if they call it distribution. I can't remember. But it has to be available that way. Otherwise, they can't see it in their system to order it.
Oh, nice. So as long as it's, because I've checked that before, never knowing what it did, right? And
it's called expanded distribution.
Thank you. I could not remember.
Well, yeah, and I think, and the reason I have this call is really just so that I can learn stuff to make me better. Yeah, I'm not trying to help anybody, right? It's but I learned two things there, right? One is the expanded distribution does something, which is a good thing, right? And the other thing was the fact that there's a community outreach person, right? I never knew what title of a person to talk to at a Barnes and Noble before, but that's a good idea. So that might be something I can do. I felt pretty brave when I was doing the book signing at the library, saying, "Hey, if I give you a copy, will you put it in the library?" And so I thought that was pretty brave. So I might be in a library soon. They're reading it now. We will see. Luckily, I get a different one.
Well, if you do reach out into your community, you will get into those spots. I reached out. I got into the library right away. Same thing. I was just like, "What? Me?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're hosting local authors. Show up this day and do a reading."
That's awesome. Yeah, I had a blast at the library. And in fact, they said that whenever I go to publish my next book, to let them know, and that I could do a book signing, is part of the launch, which is very cool. I something that I never thought of before.
And they'll buy all your books, and then they'll put them on the shelves too.
Yep, that's awesome.
Yep. I'll jump in real quick, David, if I may, to just piggyback on what Casie said. I was at a Barnes and Noble about, 3 months ago on a whim. This was before a movie, so I didn't have a lot of time. And I was walking around and I saw what looked like a book banner type advertising thing. I didn't know what that was, but then I saw a person sitting at a table with books, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is an author, likely local, doing a book signing. That's exactly what it was. Wow. I walked up, I introduced myself. I said, "Hey, I'm an author myself. I've never done a book signing type thing, especially in a store like Barnes & Noble. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" And she told me everything. She told me the outreach manager to send an email into. They said, "Yeah, bring your table in, bring your banner." She's got one of these collapsible, it looks like a screen type thing where it's got a cover. It's a printed graphic of her book with her address. She's had book cards and books and everything. And you literally, you take a book off her table and you walk it up to the register. And I think it's maybe some kind of 50-50 deal, like the bookstore gets 50% and you get 50%. I don't know what it's something like that. I bought her hardcover and I got her card. I gave her my card. And it can be just that easy. It can, if they have a free hour on a Saturday where they're going to get a lot of traffic, and you're willing to sit there and talk to people, and they get them in the store, then you can sell all her books. And she had sold a bunch that day, and nice. So that was very inspirational for me to say, yeah, just contact the manager, give him your names, get it all set up, and you too can have a book signing for an hour or two. So, nice. And I'm sure other local bookstores do the exact same thing.
Excellent. Yeah, I talked to a few about doing stuff on consignment and things like that, and having moved a couple years ago. Excuse me, I'll have to mute that out. There we go. Okay. Mute. And I did this so that I know where to mute, because I didn't do that on the last time when something happened and it was like, oh, crazy. So, but anyway, but yeah, I did talk to a couple of local places, but I had moved a couple years ago. So it's something where I don't have the same contacts, but I do like that. So anybody listening, the community outreach person at Barnes and Noble is who you want to find, because that can help you. And especially if you have checked the expanded distribution, then they can find it in their system, which is going to be huge for you, right? So if one Barnes and Noble sells a couple of yours, maybe another one will pick it up, which is is going to help you in the long run. So that's good. Any other things that people think would help other people in the indie author community, the new authors? For me, one bit of advice is, you don't have to write what you know. It's always people say, oh, write what you know. Write what you know. Well, I've never been a serial killer. Okay, I'm currently writing one. It's, I don't think I have to go out and do that first and then come back and write it down. No, you don't have to know it. Now, you have to do research, like how many gallons of blood does it take to fill up a bathtub? Well, I know the answer now. My Google search.
How do you do that research? How do you ask somebody how much blood does it take to fill up a bathtub, David? Because I want to see your emails, and if the FBI isn't knocking down your door anytime soon, then there's something wrong here.
Well, it's you go to Google, and believe it or not, it tells you right away how many liters of blood, 42 gallons of blood, and it tells you exactly how long it takes to do it yourself safely with your own blood, or how many people you need for others.
Oh my.
That's kind of scary that Google has that, but with that said, you don't have to write what you know. Like John said, he's not been in the past. Casie, I don't think you've lived in these alternative places you've written about and things like that. Maybe in a
several hundred years in the future. No.
Yeah, maybe you're a time traveler.
I could be a time traveler. Maybe the doctor came to see me.
Exactly. But so that's my advice: is you don't have to write what you know. You have to write what you feel. Right? What do you want? What's your inspiration? Now myself, I don't write with an outline. I don't know what everybody else does. I hate that topic, because people are like, what do you mean you don't write with an outline? What do you mean you don't write with a full plan of where things are happening? I'm like, if I know the ending of the story, I can't finish it. Sorry. I lose interest. Once I know the ending, I'm done. But with that said, though, write what you feel and just let it come. But for everybody else here, what other ideas do you think would help other independent or new authors get started? And I appreciate everybody being on the call today.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick, and I'll probably sound like a broken record, but if I'd known this before I hit publish, I would have probably been even better than I am today. And that's just engagement with other indie authors. Twitter and the way that they have designed their social media platform makes that incredibly easy. You can, within a week or two, meet dozens of people just like yourself, some with lots of books published, some with one book, or maybe a lot of people writing books, but they don't know where to start. I discovered that, unfortunately, after I hit publish, which is fine. There's just never too late to start. But if you can start engaging with other indie authors at whatever level they're at today, you can start engaging with them now. You will likely avoid a lot of pitfalls that you might otherwise have to have hit on your own. So you'll save a lot of time and energy and frustration if you can learn from the experience that these other authors went through, so that you can tailor your own experiences to either avoid the traps or to replicate the things that have worked. And everybody that I've met, and I count myself blessed, has been more than open, more than willing to tell me anything and everything. No holds barred. They'll give me all the secrets. There's no us versus them in the community that I've experienced. Is everyone is very happy for your success. They'll be very sad if you don't have success. but everybody's willing to help you. And I promise that is the case. Now, with any community, I'm sure there'll be some bad apples. Those get quickly shunted and put to the side. People, it's very easy on Twitter to block people or to cut them out. And the people that remain are very willing to back you up and help you out. And that is an absolute truth. And if you're on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, come and join us. It's a great community. The reason I spend as much time as I do on Twitter is it's the most rewarding for myself, because as I said on the last call, I know nothing. Yes, I have a published book, and you might think, oh, now I know everything. Now that I published that book and I've been involved in the Twitter writing community for a couple of years, it's literally as if I'm learning something new every day. I know that there are a lot of things that I don't know versus what I do know. So there's a lot for me even to learn, and I think that's great. So get on the Twitter writing community engagement if you can. It will save you so much.
And that's just the hashtag writing community, correct?
Yeah, there's a bunch. You'll once you got to kind of get into that. Some people use hashtag writing community, some use reading community, some use writers community, or just writers or authors community. There's a whole bunch of different hashtags, but it doesn't take long to follow a few dozen people, and from there you'll find even more people to follow, and you'll have more than enough people to keep you busy with any problem that you have. I guarantee whatever you're experiencing, there's 100 other people that have already experienced that. They're more than willing to tell you what to avoid or what to do to replicate their success. So
yeah, and they're not always in it for themselves either. I mean, I've got one author out there that supports me, and he hasn't published anything yet, but everything I published about one of my book, he's retweeting, and I'm like, that's just awesome.
No, that is fantastic. That's the way it should be. Like I said, it's not a zero-sum game, at least in my opinion. It's not us versus them. It's everybody will cheer for your successes, and they'll commiserate your with your problems, or they'll try to help you. It is not a zero-sum game. That might be what others experience in other parts of your life, but everybody is as a true community should be trying to help one another, not try to thwart everyone else's success so that it can make you more successful. I will cheer anybody on this call or anybody that I follow on Twitter. If they get a movie deal or something, I'll be the first in line. I'll be in the front row. I'll say, I knew when, and I will cheer your success. And I'll say, hey, maybe that'll happen to me someday. I promise I'll be in the front row. I'll say, hey, I knew that guy. I bought his book 2 years before anybody heard about this person. Or, hey, I've been reading that person for years. I love them. Oh, hey, they're super. That's the kind of spirit that I think we need.
Oh, I agree. Any other ideas? Any other communities that people attend on the interwebs, as they say?
So I will say, I mean, the Twitter community has been amazing, especially when you think about how toxic so much of Twitter and social media is. Like, once you get zeroed in and you know who to follow, and you get those right hashtags, and you build build yourself into the community, it's amazing. And like John said, like, any problem you have, even like technical problems, like, hey, I was having an issue with uploading a new version of my book. Has anybody experienced this particular issue? And there's almost always somebody who's like, oh yeah, that happened to me. You just gotta, do this, or you gotta reach out to their support or whatever. So yeah, it's amazing. But in terms of finding, and also obviously other indie authors are sometimes your best opportunities for getting readers too. But in terms of finding like readers who aren't authors, I find that to be sometimes difficult on Twitter, because usually it's a lot of other authors. I have found some book bloggers and reviewers who aren't necessarily authors, but they're very active in the writers community, because that's how they find what they want to read and how they get their books. But Facebook, I find it is oddly the best place to find just strangers to read your book, but you have to put a lot of work into it. And I know it has a lot more potential, but I haven't been able to dedicate the time to really like see its full potential. But I just know just through running some experimental Facebook ads, and actually John was the one who helped me, get clued into Facebook ads. You can find readers that you would have never found otherwise who aren't connected at all to the writers community.
100%. Yep. It's just a whole different paradigm. I don't know, DH, you're explaining it correctly. I'm not even sure the right technical term as far as social media goes, but Facebook is a whole different animal, and it is very lucrative. And if you hit the right type of advertising with the right keywords, you can literally sell 5 or 6 copies a day. I'm not kidding. For a very small investment of a couple dollars a day, you can multiply that times 5 or 6. And I only attribute that to possibly demographics, in that with my particular book, because Facebook is all about data. They can tell you down to specific age groups and other demographics who is clicking on the ads that you have. And if you see a lot of people clicking on that, you're going to reload and only then target to those specific demographics. And that's only going to then create a feedback loop that will then even be more successful. So if for me, I have found that people over 50, I don't know, maybe this is an age thing, I don't know. People over 50 are certainly 65 plus. Maybe they have a lot of time on their hands. They are voracious readers. That they click on the ads, that the book, if it's a book related type of thing and it's in their keyword, I don't even know what the right term is. If it's a keyword that they're interested in, that they'll go hog wild and they'll click on your book. It'll go straight to the thing. It'll make book sales. And that has proven very lucrative for me personally. But it's a whole different dynamic because you don't know these folks. It's not like Twitter. Yeah, maybe somebody will just follow you and you don't follow them. But for the most part, the folks that I interact with regularly on Twitter, I can see. But people that buy my book via Facebook ad, I've never met them. They don't follow me. They don't know me from Adam other than a name as an author and a Amazon page where they can buy a book or something. So
awesome. What else do we have that would help other indie authors, other people get started? Any other ideas for anyone? From anyone?
I think for a lot of people there, and it was for me, there's just this fear that sort of paralyzes you. You're like, oh, no one's going to want to read this. It's awful. Why am I even writing this? I should just give up. You have to overcome that hurdle. Like, just keep going. Just see it through, because it's going to be worth it. Like, that fear cannot win. And we all have it. I published my first book and then I was working on my second one, and that fear crept back in. You're like, oh, if they hate this one, now you're going to let people down because they have expectations. And you can't listen to that mean little voice in your head. You have to have the ability to overcome that fear. And maybe that's another segue into why you need to connect with other authors. Join the Twitter community and be like, guys, what am I doing? And everybody's gonna be like, you know what? We've been there. It's fine. Just take a break, go for a walk. It's going to be all right.
Step away from the ledge. Yeah.
Step away from the ledge. Yes.
Well, and it's something that, when you say you care, when I wrote my first couple, right, I was sort of in a vacuum, and I'm just writing these novellas, and they were coming out pretty quickly. And then I started getting feedback from friends and from people I didn't know saying, oh, we love this. Please let us know, when the next one comes out and stuff like that. And I'm going, wait a second, I've got people who care about this. So that fourth one that I was writing, I'm going, okay, let me reread this thing and all this, because before I'm writing what stories I had to get out of my head. The fourth one that's not out yet, it's about a haunted house. It's a haunted house with a young boy and a vampire. I mean, how much fun is that for just every kid dream I ever had, right? And so I'm writing this thing and I'm going, okay, will they like it, right? And some of the fans I know, and I'm going, okay, is that yeah? But it's amazing how much stress you put on yourself for something that for a lot of us is not a full-time job. For those that it's a full-time job, I imagine it's even more stressful. So yeah, that's I like that. So just make sure you get it out and don't give up. with that said, we're approaching about time here. So if there's any other quick advice anybody has, let's throw it out there. If not, we'll do a round of everybody showing their covers and doing their sign off and telling us a little bit more about your work that you're doing. So any other quick ideas from anyone?
If you have any other skill, like I'm good at photography,
Yep.
so I have opened one Instagram account where I post every day all my pics wherever I go,
Nice.
and that helps me getting more followers. And then I use Instagram as a platform to promote my book.
Nice.
So if you are good at music, if you're good at painting, if you're good at like cooking, recipe, anything, you can use those things as a tool to promote your book as well.
No, that's great. And in fact, I do the photography for the covers of my book. So it's something that I'm a huge fan of, you know, if you're into photography and stuff like that. And I've got more followers just because of posting different pictures and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny how people go through. So we'll go out of this in order of the screen that I see you all in. So first thing I'd like to do is just everybody hold up your book if you could, and to the camera, and show your face too. And then I'm going to do a quick screenshot here just so I have something for the thing. Everybody smiling. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And everybody's eyes were open. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So appreciate that. So anybody listening to that, sorry, we're signing off here. Hope you've listened to the whole hour. This is of course the authors roundtable. So Mr. Christopher Brown, can you please do your sign off and tell us about your future work or your current work or both, and we'll go out in this order.
Well, David, I want to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to host another one of these. These are always fun. These are always a great opportunity to learn about other authors. I have, put 5 new books into my Amazon basket. They will be here probably in the next 14 days. So I'm looking forward to reading some of these great books that we've been talking about. My book, Just Keep Talking, if I can remember the name of my own book, Lockdown Podcasting and Health, is available by Amazon as well if you want to go check it out. It's always a great Christmas gift or Hanukkah gift for those Jewish followers, or Kwanzaa gift, or whatever you celebrate during this holiday season. Support independent authors. That's all I can honestly say. It is hard out there for a lot of us. There is a great community that we have, but support local authors. In 2023, I'm going to continue writing. I'm going to probably be reaching out to all these guests of David's show to have them on my show. Shameless plug for that. So get ready for an invite via your Twitter portfolios, and I will be seeing you in 2023.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you for being on here, Chris. And yeah, anybody, another bit of advice for any independent author is get on Chris's podcast. He's great at this. He goes deep into your story about yourself, about your book and all that, ask all the good questions. Now myself, I get to do the fun ones where it's just all we talk about is horror stories and stuff like that. So it's all good. But yours, he will focus on your work, which is a good thing. So next we have B. Go ahead and do your sign off, and we'll go from there.
Yep, I would like to thank David for inviting me to this roundtable conference. Like, this is my first time ever into any conference, and I really enjoyed it. And in the beginning, I was a little bit nervous, but now I'm perfectly okay. If in future you want to invite me anytime, I'm always ready.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
And about my book, so it's a journey into a fantasy world where a boy meets all the different creatures, like mythical creatures, dragons, mermaids, snow leopards, you name them. And it solves their problem. And in solving their problem, he understands about himself, about how his emotions work, how his decision-taking abilities work. And half of the story is covered in this first book. And I'm still working on the second book. Hopefully, I'll publish it by March or April or maximum by May next year. And then the series will be complete.
That's awesome. Thank you for being on here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Then Casie, you're next in order here. So
all right.
On again.
Well, as with everyone else, I want to thank our lovely host for inviting me on here. It's always a pleasure. This is my second time doing it, and it's just as much fun now as it was then. And that's largely due to you. So thank you. I write the science fiction romance. So the first book of my series is The Drift. It is a dystopian setting in the future. Essentially, I call it a Romeo and Juliet meets X-Men because the human race has evolved. And he's mentally evolved. She's physically evolved. This is not allowed. So hence Romeo and Juliet. Second book is The Symbiosis that just came out this year. And both are available on Amazon. I'm currently working on the third and final book of the trilogy called The Convergence. I'm not sure when that's going to be out because I'm expecting a little one in May, and that kind of threw a kink in my plans.
Yeah.
But I am working on it, folks.
Yeah, that may delay things just a little bit, because
Just a bit.
infants don't take up any of your time.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not at all. So thank you for being here. J.A., you are next in line. So thank you for being on here. And thank you for your advice on Twitter as well, as far as for learning about editors, story reviews, and all that good fun stuff.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for inviting me. So this is my latest book, The Origins. All my books are, well, all the ones that are published are under the Olison Chronicles. So if you just Google the Olison Chronicles, Olason, and they'll all come up because there's no other books with that series.
Nice.
And it's pretty much like historical fiction. There is a very strong romance streak in them, so there is a touch of erotica, if that's what you want to call it, but it's not erotica per se, but it is graphic. Right? But I like to write very real, right? It's not about people are perfect. It's about imperfect people. Right? People that have tufts of hairs that stick up all the time and they can never get them down, right? People that are short, people that are, but it's a lot of immigration stories and war stories, World War I and World War II, and lots of perseverance. And I think that's what I feel really deep in my soul is I got to get that out to people that, life is not all roses and kisses and happiness, right? We all got to persevere through something. And the more we realize that, it makes us stronger, right? And it makes us a better person, and we're not alone.
Nope, that's
right.
exactly it. And it is those types of characters that make me interested in books, right? Because if it's all perfect, then it's I'm not perfect, so why do I want to read about somebody who's perfect, right? It's the hero is going to make mistakes. The hero may have a pot belly, it's just going to happen. But it's we don't all look like The Rock, right? So appreciate you being on here, and like I said, appreciate your advice as well, because that's definitely helped me to help my books get better, which is what it's about. So let's go next to DH and do your sign off and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So thank you. Thanks for inviting me. This was the second time I was invited to one of these. I wasn't able to make the first one. I have a 4-year-old, so 7 to 9 o'clock is like wild hour, and then hopefully bedtime. So I'm really happy my wife came through, and I was able to attend tonight. And this has been great. I mean, this is just, to me, like another extension of the writing community that I've loved being a part of, and continue to be a part of. Just to close it out on the topic of advice to new writers, if you're writing novels, any book is hard to sell, especially if you're an indie writer. My first book was a novel, and then I released a short story collection. And if you think novels are hard to sell, try selling a short story collection to people and explaining it to them. So what did I do? I'm coming out with a second short story collection in January when we come back, which is kind of a thematic cousin or spiritual cousin, I would say, to the first collection, although none of the stories are related, but they are kind of related by theme, style, and I like J.A., I think the theme of perseverance and just trying to make connections out there in the world is kind of what feeds through my books. Yeah, again, I'm very happy to have been here, and it was great meeting you all. Some of you I know from Twitter. It's great to put faces to Twitter handles now, so it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you for being on here. And last but not least, John, can you give us give us your information and do your sign off?
Sure. Thank you, David. It's again John St. Clair, and I have to thank our host, David Musser, who's very gracious with his time and the money he spent for the Zoom license, so it doesn't kick us off after 40 minutes. I'm at a book club that we're using the free version, and it's great up until it literally just signs everyone off at 40 minutes, and then it's like trying to herd cats to get everybody back in to do the sign-offs and everything. So it's thank you, David, for, I don't know how much it costs, but it's nothing is cheap today. So thank you for buying that license so that we can hang out for as long as we need. Exactly. My book is Stalin's Door, and I'd like to just take 15, I can read this in 15 or 20 seconds. I got a great review yesterday, literally December 8th. This is published on Amazon. This is from another indie author who read and reviewed my work, and I'll just read it. It's just 2 paragraphs, but it might give sort of a 50,000 foot view for what my book is, or at least what the reader thought. So this person writes, I typically avoid TV, movies, and films telling stories from the 1930s and 40s because I don't like how they glorify war. This book is not that. Stalin's Door is a great story about the Great Terror in Russia. It's told from multiple points of view, providing a larger perspective of what it felt like to live through that period. But what I liked most was how it focused mainly on the women's story and provided insight into the plight of Russian girls and women during that period. Bravo, John St. Clair. So wow. If there's anybody out there that thinks this is some kind of historical fiction and it's going to be dry with Stalin sitting behind a desk giving orders and stuff, it is not that. It's real people who were living through extraordinary times and circumstances. These are ordinary people. One is a girl. One is someone serving in the Soviet military, Navy, who gets kicked out and gets a new opportunity. One's a grandmother who ends up in the gulag. These are real people in the sense that their stories could have happened for real. These are fictional characters, obviously, but their stories could have easily happened with how I framed it. And I think it's as J.A. said, it's really going to focus on the emotions and how people were feeling and trying to understand the horror that they were living through. It's not a war book. It's a unique time in history, and I think it's relevant even to today with what is going on. And I invite you to check it out. It's not an easy read, but I think it's relevant, and I think that story is relevant today. So again, thank you, David, for having us. I really enjoy these. This is, I think, my 4th one that I've done, and I'm open to do these anytime in the future.
Excellent. Thank you all. I'm David Musser, and I too am an indie author, still independent, and the book that I'm holding up is called Living Death. And for that, it was my love story to the zombie writing community for all of the pleasure that they gave me over the years. That's what it is. It's about a gentleman who finds out that he's going to die. Not very happy about it. Probably has like a year to live due to a medical reason, and he's kind of pissed off. He's alone, and he finds some lady who's a lot younger than him, and they take off on one last adventure, but come to find out it's the end of the world. So does he really care that the rest of the world is dying along with him? That's sort of, and will he care, and will he try to help, the rest of humanity, even though there's nothing in it for him? So that's what it's about, and it's something that I'm very proud of. So again, I appreciate anybody who reads my books. I also appreciate everybody being on this Zoom session today. As John mentioned, I did go ahead and purchase Zoom for a year, so I'm planning on having one of these a month. We'll think of different topics and just do it up and have fun with it, in all trying to give back to the writing community, whether we can think of ideas, think of whatever to help others. So if you're listening to this and you have ideas for future shows, definitely let me know. So thank you all very, very much.